Well, welcome everyone to Biz Talk here on CGTN. I'm Michael Wong here in Beijing. Well, every January, the world turns its attention to a small town in the Swiss Alps, Davos, where leaders from government, business, civil society, and academia gather not just to talk about the future, but to shape it as well. Now, as the World Economic Forum prepares for its 2026 annual meeting, under the theme, A Spirit of Dialogue, what goes on behind the scenes to make Davos work? How is the agenda set? And how does the forum ensure that ideas don't end when the meeting does? Well, today we are getting an inside look from the people who design the conversations, run the operations, and connect the world's innovators. We are previewing Davos 2026 beyond the headlines and, of course, behind the curtain. Joining us bright and early from the World Economic Forum in Geneva is Severin Podolak, who is the head of event management and operations, Sheikh Tanjeb Islam, head of event editorial, and Verena Kun, who is the head of innovator communities. So welcome to you all.
Thank you.
Thank you very so much, Michael.
So thank you for joining us so early. Talk to us first about your roles and what your team does at the forum. Demystify it a little bit more for us. Verena, let me start with you.
Well, thank you so much, first of all, Michael, for having us. It's always great to be in China, even if this time it's only virtually. Really excited to be with you. Describing what I do, a lot of people ask me that, especially my mom. I will start by saying, even though my colleagues Severin and Tanjeb probably disagree, I think I have the coolest job in the forum ever. You know that the forum is the international organization for public-private collaboration, so bringing these two groups together is what we do. And as part of the private sector, we have more than 1,400 companies that are engaged. Out of the 1,400, 1,000 are really large companies. But then we also have 400 innovators, so relatively small companies that we bring in because we feel like they're really disrupting what's happening in the world. It's important that we give them a seat at the table and also that we bring them in to bring the solutions that they have to some of the problems that we're discussing in our initiatives, but also in our events. We have, amongst the 400, three different groups. The first one are the technology pioneers that are early stage, so typically 10 to 50 million funding. And then we have another group that are already farther along, which we call the global innovators. And then finally, everyone talks about unicorns. These are typically defined as startups that already have $1 billion valuation. And we also have a community for these. So looking at different stages, but we feel all of them are on their way to become one of the big players eventually.
Yeah. Well, Verena, I feel like your role at the forum, you're really at the forefront in terms of understanding how technology is working these days to reshape economies and societies. Severin, let me come to you because Verena was saying she has the coolest job at the forum. You might argue, and Tanjeb might argue, that you both have the coolest job as well. So, Severin, let me get to you in terms of your role at the forum and what your team does. Talk to us a little bit more about that.
I think all our roles, they're crucial to really ensure that our purpose, improving the state of the world, is really met, then also on site in Davos. So my part is really to make sure that this purpose can be supported by an excellent operations. That means my team and myself, we take care of transportation, of accommodation, of all the technical infrastructure that the 3,000 participants on site, they really see and feel and get the best an infrastructure can have. But it's also the operations. We are feeding over 3,000 people. We have 2,000 staff overall working on Davos, being in the preparation. So right now we already have a team in Davos that is laying out network cables, that is starting with the first setup of the venue. And our job is really to coordinate that. And with that, we really can make sure that the guiding theme, spirit of a dialogue, can happen in an infrastructure where people feel welcome, comfortable to exchange ideas and having engaging conversations.
Absolutely. The unsung heroes, I would say, behind every single year's annual meeting and, of course, annual meeting of the new champions. Tanjeb, over to you. Talk to us a little bit about your role at the forum and your team.
No, thank you so much, Michael, and thank you for having us. I definitely do not have the coolest job at the forum. I have the most boring job at the forum. So very humbled to be sitting next to Severin and Verena here and with you as well. My team is looking after what we call is the event editorial. What we do on our end is to manage the program. You mentioned Davos, obviously, you mentioned the annual meeting of the new champions, but in addition to that, the forum hosts a number of different summits across the world. We have a special meeting coming up in Saudi Arabia, where we have a team actually currently there to kind of brainstorm with the government and key stakeholders there. We host the Sustainable Development Impact meetings on the sidelines of the UN High-Level Week. We have the annual meeting of the Global Future Council, which we host in Dubai. So a lot of these aspects, the programmatic involvement of it, you mentioned behind the headlines. My team works behind the curtain and behind the headlines to kind of ensure that we are able to create the headlines. So that's where my team gets involved. Obviously, Davos is why we are here, to really put it frankly. So it's probably one of our busiest seasons as well.
Yeah, and I think that's key, I think, for many of our audience members to remember. There is, of course, the annual meeting. There's the annual meeting of the new champions, the Summer Davos here in China. But in between, the forum does so much to engage with public and private sector stakeholders. Tanjay, let me stick with you because a spirit of dialogue, that is the overall theme for the annual meeting in 2026. Why did the forum choose that theme for 2026?
No, thank you so much, Michael. I think it's important to kind of step back as to the world we live in today. We are seeing exponential change on two fronts. On one end, I think Verena alluded to it, the really exciting part of having technology and really seeing what technology can do for the betterment of not only mankind, but also in terms of society, in terms of economies, in terms of businesses, the transformations that is at play there. That is something that we feel here, even at the forum, having worked on with the Center for the Fourth Industrial Revolution. When it started in 2016, we were seeing the cusp of it from a very early stage. And I think that is now what is coming together very strongly in the real economy, if I may put it that way. The second aspect of it, which we cannot equally discount, which is a bit more on the risk side and some of the downside risks on that end, we are seeing forces of fragmentation at play in the global economy as well. If you look at what the IMF had been saying for about 2 years, there's a potential of a 7% loss of global output if fragmentation plays out the way they were forecasting. The combination of these two aspects mean that the world we live in has dramatically altered and dramatically changed. The need to kind of understand each other is even more important. The way policymaking, the way businesses will operate across geographies, across sectors will be different. And that aspect of it is kind of goes back to the ethos of the forum, which is the need for stronger public-private cooperation, which is the need to kind of understand where each other stand. And what we wanted to kind of really instill for the 56th annual meeting as we head back to Davos in January, is that people are in the space where they can have that dialogue. Because the places from where they're coming in from can be dramatically different, but even within that difference, there are areas of cooperation that they can find. We feel fairly confident that within the program, both in the official, in the private, there are scope for these sectors, these economies to kind of come together. And that's the spirit that we want to kind of instill as we head back to Davos in January.
Yeah, that spirit of dialogue absolutely crucial now, given where the world stands, where globalization stands, where we see this rise in perhaps in protectionism, all this uncertainty that we see in the world right now. Dialogue absolutely essential. Severin, let me come to you again and ask you about the nuts and bolts of where we are in terms of preparations for the annual meeting to make sure this dialogue happens. We've got about maybe just over a month to go before the annual meeting occurs in Davos. How far in advance does the event management and operations team plan for Davos every single year?
Well, Davos is really an institution-wide engagement, and we start immediately after the annual meeting. So we do first the debrief, and then we immediately start with the preparation for the next edition. But I think also what Tanzeb mentioned, we have other events happening. So what we often do, and I think the annual meeting of the new champions in China is a great example, this is really where we test ideas, where we come up with innovations of things that we also want to bring to Davos. So for example, this year, we created a couple of years ago a special format for the event in China, which we call the hub sessions. Now, for the first time this year, we bring that to Davos because we have seen that the experience for participants during the annual meeting of the new champions in China is excellent. People really appreciate this eye-to-eye conversations in a smaller format, so that's something that we bring now to Davos. With that, or in that sense, Davos and China are actually closely related in a learning cycle. So we are right now in the hot phase. So we're taking over the Congress Center tonight. Meaning from now on, we really go into the operationalization of what we plan throughout the year. We're doing the setup, and it will be ready, everything that we can start in roughly 1 month.
Yeah, well, I can attest to the innovation of the hub sessions, Severin, because I attended some of those during the summer Davos this year. Fantastic insights, a lot of interesting perspectives that you may not be able to hear in the formal panel sessions. And there's, I think, tremendous demand in these hub sessions. A lot of people trying to get in, but unfortunately the seats are filled. So perhaps for the annual meeting going forward, there can be more hub sessions. That's a pretty good innovation, I would say. Renat, let me come to you. So when selecting innovators for your community, what matters the most to your team? What instantly stands out?
Yeah, I think what we're really looking for is the pioneers, right? We have the community called Technology Pioneers, so we're looking for companies that are doing something radically new, that are bringing a new approach and disrupting. At the same time, we also want to make sure that it is realistic and that it can have an impact. So we like to have companies that already have a product in market, and finding the right balance between those. But I think really in a bottom line, we try to find the disruptors that best sort of complement our big companies and bring the new ideas and bring a bit of a fresh spirit.
Gotcha. Tanzeb, so give us a sneak peek then. What are the most impactful sessions and topics we should watch out for at Davos 2026?
No, Michael, I think what we tried to do this year, which is a bit different, and I think that's something to kind of also highlight from the way we are looking at it programmatically. If you look at our meeting overview, we no longer have thematic pillars. We want it to be current, we want it to be relevant, we want it to be where the world is today, right? So as a result, if you look at how we are looking to design the program from that end, is to really focus on current challenges that leaders are facing. So the way the program is going to kind of shape up is to look at the challenges that we are facing when it comes to geopolitical cooperation, the challenges that we are facing when it comes to identifying new models and sources of growth. How do we better invest in people? How do we grow within our planetary boundaries? And most importantly, how do we scale and deploy innovation responsibly? So from that context, a lot of the 400 plus sessions that we're going to have on Davos would be really diving into these 5 global challenges that we would like to outline. The way we are doing it this year a bit differently, you kind of alluded to it as well with regards to the hubs. Additionally, what we are looking to bring in is a bit of a long-form conversation. We're going to introduce a podcast format this year, so it gives a chance to leaders to have a bit more of a prolonged discussion on a particular topic. We are doing a few things differently. We are introducing something called a town hall. So it gives the general Davos participant the chance to kind of ask leaders the right questions. So they will have an opportunity to kind of have that interaction at that level. Severin highlighted the hubs as one aspect of it. And then lastly, which is you will see already reflected in the program, what we call is an honest conversation. So really putting an intimate conversation between 2 to 3 leaders, so a bit different than the panels, to really dive deeper into these 5 challenges, but really bring in the aspect of divergent viewpoints that may exist on those topics as well.
Yeah. Well, so how do you differentiate the town hall event, which is this new innovation that you're going to try out for next year, compared to the normal sessions that we have at Davos? Are the podcast sessions going to be live streamed as well?
Yes, so all our official sessions are live streamed and you will be available on my forum and also on our website. The podcast itself is more for a listening aspect of it, but we are trying to partner with different social media organizations to see how we can team up to kind of disseminate that better. So please watch that space from our side. In terms of your initial question of how does it differ in terms of the town hall from the stakeholder dialogues, as we would like to call it, for the regular panels, this one really brings in the aspect of the crowd who's there. So, we have a dedicated room which is set up in a way whereby it looks like a classroom. It looks like we call it aula, which I believe in French is school, or German it's school, or a theater, if I'm not mistaken. So it gives us an opportunity for the general Davos participant to really ask leaders that question. Number two, what we try and do there is keep it really small in terms of the setup. So it is about 1 + 2 people or 1 + 3 at best to really have that interaction. So it's less of a moderator asking question, but more of the crowd from the aula kind of asking that question.
Yeah. Wow. So a lot of new innovations that we can expect for Davos 2026. We've got the hub sessions, we've got town hall, we've got podcasts in addition to the regular stakeholder dialogues. So Severin, then in your opinion, what do you think really is the DNA of a super well-run event at the annual meeting, given all of the moving parts that Tanjev just described?
Well, forum events are working events. They are designed to support the spirit of dialogue. And we bring together business leaders, governments, civil society, academia, and also the media. And this is also why the program and the infrastructure, they're really well aligned, that we can create this space of trust that also encourages open conversations and productivity. But then there's also the aspect that you just mentioned, is we also want that the world can participate in those conversations. Therefore, a part of the program is live streamed on different platforms where we really want to show how those conversations happen, what is the work of the forum, and how do global leaders tackle the challenges that we are facing.
Verena, let me come back to you and ask you about how many applicants you might get for the innovator community every single year. What's the demand like? I think it is the season right now for people to apply. Can they still apply?
Yeah, thank you so much. I was hoping I could have a bit of a plug here for our application. Indeed, the applications for the technology pioneers are now open. They're going to be open until after Davos, so end of January. And we would love to get more applications from China, which is a really important market for innovation. I will say we do get more applications than we can take in. But again, I think, strong applications, especially from China, are very much encouraged.
So maybe give a little bit of advice for people who want to apply to the community. How do you stand out? What kind of blind spots should you definitely avoid? Of course, everybody wants to be a disruptor. That we understand. But what other advice can you give to applicants who want to join the community?
Yeah, so really most of the applications we get are outstanding. So I don't see a lot of blind spots, I think. I think really linking how what you do with your company links to the forum's mission of improving the state of the world. And then maybe if you look at our website, we have 11 centers in which we work all year long to try and really bring alive this collaboration between the public and the private. And so if you already see an area where you feel like you can make unique contributions, then also bring that into the application. I think this is also an additional element that we're looking for.
Great advice. Tanjev, let me come back to you. So at the forum, there's so many sessions, so many things to look out for, so many interesting perspectives and insights. What do you think defines a truly successful session or speaker for the editorial team?
Oh, that's a tough question, because I think, to me, not to be complacent per se, but I think what really makes the forum session unique is its multi-stakeholder approach. If you look at most of our sessions, we really push during this period in December and in early January to ensure that that multi-stakeholder approach is kind of reflected. Why I highlighted that complacency part of it, I think many a times, having observed other events or other summits, there's necessarily, it's not a given that this would happen. I think what that naturally allows in a forum session is the fact that, and that's why I had also highlighted that it goes back to the ethos of the forum, that in its true spirit, we are able to kind of bring together really naturally in a way, without having to force people to kind of go that way, the aspect of dialogue and aspect of divergent views on a particular topic. The second aspect which I would highlight here is kind of building onto what Severin was saying. What differentiates the forum from, I think, any other conference or meeting is its working style. Meetings that we have during the 4.5 days that people are there in Davos for, but it's also the communities. Many a times that we are bringing many of these CEOs, they're not just meeting once a year in Davos. Throughout the year, we will have our communities of purpose who are engaging. At the beginning, I kind of highlighted a number of different events where many of these communities are also there. So in a way, it's like a group of people who are coming together really for a shared purpose. And I think that the aspect of trying to find solutions in that completely fractured and fragmented world for this shared purpose, I think is what differentiates a forum session vis-a-vis others.
Yeah, well, at least for me, if that conversation in Davos sticks with me throughout the entire year, I want to learn more about it. I want to expand the thoughts and perspectives that I hear from Davos. That would be truly successful as a session and for a speaker as well. Severin, let me come back to you. What are the biggest challenges, do you think, for your team each year that might be underappreciated by people who attend Davos or by people who watch live streams of Davos? What is that one part of forum operations you think that people really underestimate but determines everything goes smoothly at the forum?
Davos happens in a very unique setting. Imagine it's the highest city in Europe. It's on 1,500 meters. It can be pretty cold, but it's beautiful, you know, in those snowy mountains. But it has only 10,000 residents. That means infrastructure is limited, and infrastructure is mainly the Congress infrastructure, but then also even workforces can become a challenge, but then especially accommodation. It's very difficult for us to find enough accommodation for our participants. On the contrast, in China, we experience really exceptional hospitality and great hotel infrastructure. In Dalian and in Tianjin, we can operate in a handful of hotels, while in Davos, we have over 50 hotels that we have contracts with. They are spread out through the city, so it's mainly the limited infrastructure, I would say. Maybe one fun fact, you would imagine that Davos, it's cold, it can be -15, -18 degrees, that we might have difficulties with heating, but it's actually the same situation that we find when we have the meeting in China. We actually need not to cool down because there's no air conditioning in Davos, but 3,000 people in the Congress Center, they produce so much heat that we actually need to open up the windows. So heating is really not a challenge in Davos.
Yeah, truly an underappreciated fact for making all of this work every single year. Verena, let me come back to you in terms of the innovator community. Once you join, what kind of support does your team provide? Because I would assume once you join the community, then you want this community engagement to continue throughout the rest of the year and going forward. What kind of support do you bring once an applicant is successful to the community?
Yeah, thank you for that question. The most obvious thing is obviously you become part of the forum's platform, where you also meet our big industry partners, where you also meet the policymakers. Practically, what does that mean for a startup? First of all, there's obviously an element about visibility. Visibility to potential customers, but also visibility through our social media channels, etc. The second thing, I think you alluded to it, is also the engagement in the centers. I talked about the 11 centers where we have initiatives that run throughout the year that sort of all feed up to this bigger mission of improving the state of the world. And every one of our innovators is linked to one of these centers and then to a concrete initiative in that center. And that gives them different things. It gives them, again, access and visibility with people that are really relevant to them, but it allows them also to talk about their solutions. And it gives them, to a certain extent, what I hear from CEOs is there is a bit of a foresight. They see things coming a bit in advance if you're part of these conversations. And then finally, and I think, Tanzeb, you talked about it, right? The most important element that people typically don't think about is the community itself. Yes, there are a lot of startup communities already, but I think the very careful curation and selection of these startups makes it so powerful. And we've just met early December in New York with about 80 of our founders, and this is really also something that they play back to us. If you imagine, if you are a deep tech founder, you basically want to do something that everyone tells you can't happen, is impossible. And it's a very lonely role, I would say. And here they find a community, a trusted space where they can talk about things that are very unique to their role. So I think that's one of the key things that they actually take out from engaging with the forum.
Yeah. And do you stay with them, Verena, throughout the entire life cycle as a tech pioneer and then eventually support them until they become a unicorn?
Yes. So we do have quite a couple that run through all the different stages, and then actually, Michael, they move on from being a unicorn to becoming a normal partner. I think right now, and the number is growing so quickly, I don't have the exact number, we have about 50 associate partners and above that came through our community. And that's something that's deeply exciting to me, because I feel like we bring this innovation, we bring this disruption, but also a bit these very honest voices, naturally honest voices to the permanent stage in Davos.
Yeah, wow, what a strong relationship from tech pioneer all the way to unicorn and then into a normal company after maybe IPO. Tanzeb, let me come back to you. Was there a topic that you had to drop for the editorial team for Davos 2026? And if so, why didn't it make the agenda for the annual meeting next year?
Thanks, Michael, for the question. From our side at the forum, we maintain our editorial independence. We have been, the way the programming process for us works is we go to all members of the forum's internal teams here to kind of identify what are topics that they feel their constituents are now thinking of, what should be on the agenda. We start that process around August, September. And then it's an iterative process from there, from that context. So obviously, you know, with the real estate that we have in Davos that Severin kind of indicated towards, there is a level of prioritization that needs to take place. That prioritization and how that happens is the editorial independence of the forum, particularly within my team. We do our consultation internally, and based on that is what we kind of curate the session ideas for. Just to give you again a fun fact on the types, you know, the session submission and how it works. This year, for example, we received over 650 proposals from our colleagues from inside the House. So my job and my team's job at that point is to really see where do we see overlaps, where do we see possibility of even alignments with different parts of the House. So in a way, we played the role of an honest broker, of trying to really bring different parts of the institution also together to kind of reflect the best session or agenda. And you know, that editorial independence, I think, is pretty crucial to ensure that the program then reflects the needs of our constituents and also the demands of our internal colleagues as well.
Yeah. Well, Tanzeb, on the flip side, is there a specific topic that you had strong initial pushback on, but you fought hard to keep on the agenda?
It's tough to kind of look back from August, since so many things have happened since then. From our side, let me put it this way again, I think, Michael, there is, the editorial independence process that we have at the forum is very strong. So, from our side, what we try and do, and it may sound boring to you, is run a series of consultations, is to run a series of discussions that we have with our colleagues. Verena's nodding next to me. Even till late last night, around 9:30 p.m., we were actually in discussion on a topic that we want to kind of move and iterate and edit further. And, we are a month away from the summit itself, right?
Yeah.
And this is like, I'm making it up. It's actually happened last night. It's not going to be the last. And it's not going to be the last, right? So for us, from that end, the push and the pull, in a way, exists, if I be honest. But what is important is that at the end of the day, despite, I think, what my colleagues may say or what may be viewed from outside, the call that is taken from our side, from a forum's editorial team, that remains. And I think generally, I've been doing this role for about 4 years. People have then, once it's there has been very strong support from the institution to kind of push it there.
But I have to ask, Tanjeb, is there one topic, of course this is going to be subjective, is there one topic that you are truly excited about for the annual meeting next year that you can give just a sneak peek for us and our viewers? You don't have to say the actual name of the entire session. I'm sure we can't do that right now, but is there a particular topic next year that you are excited about?
I think I'm going to make myself really unpopular if I name a particular session, but I will take that route. I think, to me, what is always, I'm an economist by training, so I think for me, personally, the global economic outlook that we do on Friday to kind of close Davos is really, for me, a very transformative session. Because I think when you sit in January and you look at what's going to play out in the global economy with the policymakers who usually join, the business voices who usually join, just to give you an example, last year, for example, we had Christine Lagarde on that session, we had Kristalina Georgieva in that session, one of our current co-chairs, Larry Fink, was on that session. The insight that you get at the end of at the beginning of the year, but end of Davos, to really set what's going to be playing out in the global economy, for me, is always very transformative. Because I think many a times we underestimate just the words that come out. If you look at how the global economy has played out, and if you now trace back to what they were saying on really growth still remaining resilient, Europe facing a few difficulties, but again, maintaining their resilience and how they need to kind of transform when it comes to the technologies. You really see it play out throughout the year. So for me, I will stick to that. There's another 499 sessions run by my different colleagues. They may feel a bit disappointed, but personally, I think that's really one to kind of watch out for.
That's a great session, by the way, Tanjeb. I mean, I always view that as the flagship session. Super good insights and perspectives to sort of anchor the year and the conversations at the annual meeting. Severin, let me come to you. You've done this for so many years now. What are some of the maybe fun facts, the key operational lessons that you've had throughout the years that really need to happen in order to make an annual meeting stand out?
Well, I would say, especially since COVID, one key lesson is really that impact starts with human connection. We see over the years really the need of participants that they have enough space, enough time between sessions to engage with each other, to sit down. But then also, of course, we all have the requirements to eat and we need to drink. So those basic, let's say, needs, they are key that we execute that in a very smooth way. Our participants, they should really only focus on their agenda. They should focus on the dialogue they have with other participants, and we take care of all the operational aspects. But certainly the human aspect, it's the human moments that make Davos a special moment. It's not only the sessions. Of course, the sessions are the crucial part of the overall event concept, but it's also those tiny moments when you meet someone in the corridor and you can grab quickly a coffee and talk a couple of ideas.
Yeah, totally agree in terms of how you set up the meeting points, the contact points, so it's easier to foster dialogue at the annual meeting and other events at the forum. Verena, let me come back to you. Tell us more about some of the most interesting innovators in the community's 2025 cohort, or any cohort that you felt really stood out.
Yeah, so you put me a bit in the same position as Tanzep. It's like, I think all of them are exceptional. But maybe let me give you a couple that sort of portray well and are representative of some of the themes that we have. One of the ones I'm thinking of, everyone talks about AI and the immense need of energy that AI creates. So we have in our cohort a startup that is trying to address that by putting data centers into space. And the logic behind that is data centers obviously need a lot of energy. They need the energy mostly also for cooling. And so we know space is very cold. At the same time, you have pretty much solar energy without any interruption. And so that's something that they're working on. And I think that portrays well how we're really trying to bring in people who do very courageous and very disruptive things. That's in the energy field. But there's also other fields that really come back all the time. I think another field that is deeply touched by AI is skills and what will it do to our jobs. And one of the startups that we work with, and that's also coming to Davos, has observed that the changes in the skills you need as a company are so rapid, and also the way that your work population basically learns is pretty rapid. So it's very hard to keep track of that. And so they use AI to map skills within your own company, and then also to map skills that are needed for a specific role, and ideally to match them, and then to also show you what are some skills gaps that you may have that you may want to hire for. So really using AI for skills-based hiring and recruiting. And then finally, another one that I like personally is AI can also really be used, I think, to bring people together, right? There's a discussion of whether it does or it doesn't. I think it can bring people together. The founder of this startup, he was born in Poland, and he was fed up with the bad dubbing. You probably don't know that problem in China. I come from Austria, a very small country. Most things we see are done in another language, and then the dubbing is really bad and disruptive. And so he felt like we could use AI to solve that problem, and created a voice AI and avatars that are now broadly used, and that make it much more easy to bring you content really in your own language in a much more natural way. So I think these are three examples, and I could give you many more, but I think what runs through them is really taking technologies to solving some of the tough problems, but also to bring people together.
Yeah, very interesting, very innovative startups, I would say, indeed. Data centers in space. This is what I really appreciate about the forum. You really have these highly forefront ideas that you don't hear anywhere else, and you hear at the forum first. Tanzep, let me come back to you. Are there topics you believe the forum should explore more of in the future, but just didn't have enough time for the annual meeting in 2026?
Thanks, Michael. In short, I would hope not, that we are kind of covering what we have to, including data centers in space. There would be quite an interesting space, a couple of interesting space sessions that we are kind of looking at as well. Look, I think between now and January itself, Michael, a lot of things can change. And I think what we are also very good at the forum, and again, not to be too complacent about it, is that we have the agility to kind of adapt as well. So I think for me, what we will try and do on our side is, I think I'd mentioned it earlier, in the relevance scheme, to also ensure another format that I don't know whether you would have seen in Davos, but we call something called an issue briefing, which is to kind of really dive deep into a particular issue that is top of mind for policymakers and leaders on that front. So we leave that flexibility itself for the month of January to kind of cover on that end. I do hope, as I said, that we are covering for the leaders who are visiting Davos most of the topics that would be top of mind for them. But again, the really utilizing the full spectrum of forum events for us is important. So even if there is a particular area, the one which comes to mind, which would be relevant for your audience as well, is, for example, on EVs. We have a coverage of EVs in Davos this year, which we learned from how popular it was in China during our summer Davos. But we do different breakdowns of that when we come to China, because there we have a different constituent base where the appetite for it is a bit different. So there are some of these areas that we break down further when we go to different events, but I'm fairly confident that for leaders who are visiting, we are able to present the menu of options that would be kind of providing insights for what challenges that they're facing today.
So Severin, Tanjab mentioned the annual meeting of the new champions. The summer Davos was first held in China all the way back in 2007. My goodness, how time flies. Talk to us maybe about your operational footprint here in China and how you see that operational footprint perhaps expanding or changing going forward.
I think China is extremely important for the World Economic Forum, is where we have a big constituent base, but it's also the location where outside of Geneva we have one of the largest offices, and we together with our colleagues sitting in the office in Beijing, we have a couple of very important events that happen in China as well. But China is also very critical to us because it's 6 months after Davos, and it has a focus that is also, it's more focused on innovation of entrepreneurship. Now, China is one of the big engines when it comes to innovations, and this is also how we can ensure that global leaders can also meet Chinese innovations and forefront technologies. So it's the second biggest event that we have in our calendar. And for me and also my team, it's always a very special place. We enjoy incredible hospitality. It's always a pleasure to come to China. Next time we will be in March. For a site visit to Dalian, and then we have the meeting end of June in Dalian, and I'm sure we will see you there as well. And we are super excited already now to work on the annual meeting of the new champions.
Yeah. Well, Tanjab, what is the link then between the annual meeting and the annual meeting of the new champions here in China? What sort of links, relationships are there? Is there a connection, or is it completely different?
I'm glad you asked that, because I was just going to raise my hand to say, can I just come in to kind of build on that? So I'm glad you preempted that, Michael. Look, there's a very strong link, because the way I particularly encourage our team members also think about it is the fact that no forum summit happens in isolation. What is extremely important is that there is not only a link from Davos to summer Davos, but if you recall, I'd mentioned some of these communities of purpose that needs to meet. They meet in Saudi, they'll meet in Dubai, they'll meet in New York. And for me, the aspect of Davos and summer Davos is that it's the macro level accumulation of this that happens. Now, what makes it a bit different compared to winter Davos versus summer Davos is the fact that what we do try is really plug in 3 summits at once when it comes to the summer Davos. So it's a summit on obviously innovation, entrepreneurship, and technology. That's a big focus that happens whenever we meet in China. Number 2, it's a big focus of the emerging markets. We are going to the largest emerging market in the world. So people really, when we talk about new sources of growth, that is where the new sources of growth are coming from. So there is always that encouragement to kind of understand these models. And third but not least, we are going to Asia, which is fundamentally the way things happen in Asia is very different than when it happens in other parts of the world. And a simple example I can give you on this front, as I reflect back on from our program in China to Davos, is I mentioned EVs earlier, but another topic is financial inclusion or financial technology. What we had seen in Asia when it comes to mobile financial services, when it comes to fintech in broadly, is something that is now being exported to the rest of the world. And from that context, a lot of the sessions that we had done in China 2-3 years ago is something that we are now looking to kind of cover here and seeing how the rest of the world kind of catches up on some of these technologies and some of these dimensions. So for us, that linkage is always very strong. I always look at it, as I said, like for me, the forum cycle ends and begins with Davos in a way, but everything in between has a link back.
Yeah, absolutely. Verena, let me come back to you. And I'm not sure if the innovators that you just introduced to us were any of them from China, but what are some of the interesting aspects of China's innovation ecosystem that perhaps might be misunderstood by the outside world? Or what do you want the outside world to understand more about China's innovation ecosystem? And if you can, Verena, maybe tell us about some of the interesting Chinese innovators in the community that you lead.
Yeah, sure. Thank you for the question. So China, I talked about it in the beginning, is a very important country for my community. When you look at the number of unicorns globally, China has the second highest number of unicorns right after the US. So naturally for us, it's a market that we look at very, very closely. I think that the people, and I'm a bit in a bubble maybe, but when I talk about innovators, everyone understands that China is a very, very important market and people want to come and understand it. We talked about our summer Davos, the annual meeting of the new champions. That's a big, big important meeting for my communities. We have about 100 founders there, literally from all over the world, because people want to come and see and understand how is innovation done in China. Now, when you say concrete examples, I think broadly speaking, something that Tansep also alluded to, what Chinese startups are really good at is doing things with less input at a very, very high quality. I mean, the most obvious example is obviously DeepSeek, that I think then even outside of my bubble shook up everyone and showed the excellence of innovation in China, but that also carries through other areas. Some of the areas that I see where Chinese startups are really leading is when it comes to batteries, when it comes to autonomous mobility, but also when it comes to client tech and biotech. And then finally, obviously also AI. I'm not only speaking about the model providers, but also one of the Chinese startups that's coming to Davos with us, it's a robotics company. And we've all seen sort of these videos of failed robots that tumble and stumble, and it's funny to look at. But that Chinese startup is using AI to help the computer to see, to think, and then to act, and sort of to make these videos in the future much rarer. Then again, we also have another one coming that's also in the education space, trying to use AI to give every child a personalized education. That's something I find truly inspiring. So very excited about Chinese startups coming to Davos.
Yeah. Well, Verena, let me zoom out a little bit more, because I feel you are at the forefront of innovation and technology. What are you seeing that perhaps we are not seeing in terms of the emerging trends or technologies that will shape the future? Data centers in space, I think, is absolutely fascinating. Humanoid robots might be up there as well. I definitely could use a humanoid robot in terms of making sure my place stays clean. What else are you seeing that the rest of us are just not seeing right now?
Yeah, good question. And I think here in Davos times, we all could use a humanoid robot at our neglected homes. I think that yes, AI is still going to be a really big topic, and applications of AI are going to continue. But for me, that's almost not sort of on the horizon. What I see on the horizon is, first of all, neurotechnology. So that can be brain-computer interfaces. And I think this is another example of convergence, where these things have been sort of existing for a while, but AI just gives much more possibilities of what you can do. And some of the startups that we work with use neurotechnology to help people with severe disabilities, with severe diseases, to have a much better life. So neurotech, I feel like, is just at the edge where it's going to become mainstream. And then the other big thing I'm seeing is physical AI. So there has been, at least in the MIT study, quoted that a lot of companies use AI, but they don't see any return. So what's it good for, etc. At the same time, there's also discussions about the models they have read to the end of the internet. What new sources can we give them? And here is physical AI that comes in, where you sort of take in data from sensors and then a model will take those sensor data, learn like a real student of how does physics work, and then based on that come up with new models. And that's something I'm really excited for, because I feel it will lead to the next jump of AI.
Yeah. Hopefully we're going to see all of those topics being discussed at the annual meeting, or maybe at AMNC as well. Severin, let me come to you. If the success of the 2026 annual meeting were measured by just one outcome, what do you want that outcome to be?
From an operational perspective, I think what is critical for me that it really runs smoothly, but then also that all staff, all participants, they return home safely and with a good well-being. Now, from a forum perspective, I think success is when participants really remember the conversations they had, what they joined in sessions, and also that they remember afterwards, you know, those beautiful sceneries with snows, mountains, and so on. Because as I said in the beginning, I think impact really only works through human connections, and those human moments, these are critical to have in Davos. And my team and myself, we're working that our participants, they really can focus on having the dialogue on site, while I take care of all the cumbersome topics with like logistics, safety, security, and so on.
Well, very important topics indeed, logistics, security, and safety. Tanjeb, I'm going to give you the final word. You alluded to this earlier. The forum is in its 56th year. What is the forum doing to ensure that it remains vibrant, relevant, and future ready?
Thanks, Michael. I think from our side, it's good to kind of look at what are the principles that we kind of really hold ourselves against. I think to kind of answer your question in short, for me, I think it's to look at four key aspects. One is, are we really at the cutting edge of when it comes to topics, discussions? I think if you just heard Verena's part from this conversation, I feel fairly confident, and I think the fact that we do bring in 70 innovators who she didn't mention, but even over the last 2 years, we've had OpenAI and Anthropic as global innovators who have come in. So just to give you a flavor or a feel from that end. Number two is the fact that we are really able to connect the dots. There is no point having a discussion on AI if we are not able to kind of merge that with something like quantum and the impact that will have. Something like on cyber, how does cyber criminals now think of using AI as well? And we are not able to kind of protect ourselves against it. Number three for me is then really using those first two to kind of generate insights. You alluded to a number of sessions that has given you insights, some traditional, some non-traditional, but really trying to generate those insights by bringing these two folks together, these two principles together is important. For us, and I think this is a no compromise on that end, the multi-stakeholder approach that I had alluded to earlier. It's not just civil society, academia, members from that end. It's within that, the people who are coming in. Just to give you a brief example there, Michael, this year, for example, we have about 12 Nobel laureates who are coming in, including the two current ones for economics, they're including our current one for physics, as well as on chemistry, if I'm not mistaken. So just the aspect of when we say experts who are coming in, people who are at the forefront of the innovation that the field that they represent. So for us, these four principles is a no compromise on that end. And I think if we can maintain this, it's something where we will continue to remain as one of the foremost platforms for public-private cooperation.
Okay, we are going to leave it there. Certainly a lot to look forward to for the annual meeting in 2026 of the World Economic Forum. The theme, of course, for next year is a spirit of dialogue. So many interesting perspectives and insights at every single Davos event, I feel, especially in terms of helping the viewer connect all of those dots. And hopefully we're going to see all three of you here in China, in beautiful Dalian, for the annual meeting of the new champions, the Summer Davos in 2026. Verena, Severin, Tanjeb, thank you so much for your insights.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
And with that, we're going to wrap up this edition of Biz Talk here on CGTN. I'm Michael Wong here in Beijing. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you again next time.